This is Michael from NCY Store. If all fails, you could put a water hose into your battery. I'm just kidding. Actually, I want to talk to you guys about the voltage and current, how it relates, and also watts. Think of currents like the flow of electricity. So it's measured in what's called amps, and amps are pretty much is the volume of amps are coming in, and the pressure, think of the pressure as the voltage. So this battery right here, if I go and show you, if I can actually tuck it in there, it's a 12-volt battery. It's actually screwed on, but you can barely see it. It's like 12 volts by 8 amps. So this is enough to crank over a scooter if it's fully potentially has 12 volts in there. And pretty much you take volts times amps, you get your wattage. That's how people measure power coming out of the hose. Like for example here, again, the flow, the water current is electricity. Currency is measured in amps, and then the pressure, which created by the pump, and then also this fine hose here is pretty much the watts. So you can see here if I turn on the water hose, see, nothing's coming out yet. Now it's coming out. So that pressure right there is pretty much forcing the amp of the current is coming out, and that's called voltage. And then that, you remember back in the old days they used to have a water mill to power things? Well, that's the same analogy here. Just think of it this way. But electricity and water don't mix, so don't get me wrong. But that's it. Pretty much you take amps times volts, you get watts, which is what's measured the power of electricity. So that's the relation here. And what we're going to do is we're going to be cranking the scooter, troubleshooting it, and we don't want to pretty much use our Charade battery because it's a little bit more expensive than the typical $25 battery. Charade is about anywhere from $150 and up. So we want to make sure, you could probably get a little lesser, by maybe about $135 you shop around, but most of the Charade batteries are pretty much a bill and up. So we want to make sure that we actually we're going to troubleshoot this. So we're going to test it on a battery. We know that this battery is mildly charged, but we don't know how much the voltage is. So what you're going to need to troubleshoot your charging system, it's pretty much a 5 1/8 to remove the spark plug. You're going to need an 8mm to remove just pretty much your starter bolts and the ground bolts. And then you're going to need a 10mm to pretty much either mess around with your terminal here or your solenoid. And I'll explain the relationship between this relay solenoid. What it is the positive battery goes into the positive. This one should read the same of your battery reading. So let's say your battery was 12 volts. This should be 12 volts. What happens is these are separate conductors, and there's a plate there, like a magnetic plate. What it does is like it brings it up. It's like a magnetic force that springs it up, and then it makes these two contacts. When these two contact, they become bridged. Now this one right here goes pretty much to your starter motor. If you have a harness, you won't be able to know it, but it does. It goes right here to your starter holder. Let's see if I can get that in there. Put my resolution here. Sorry about that. Bump the camera. So there it is. This is within the red wire coming from the other end of the solenoid. It goes into the positive of your starter motor here, and your starter motor is just nothing but a big huge coil, and then is grounded right here in the back of this body plate. So also I want to let you know, also I installed another ground. I installed the ground one before to the valve cover. You remember on the other side? Let's see if I can see it better. There we go. That's one ground there. But I also ran another ground here. Let me come around. You can see there's multiple wires coming to the negative terminal, which I use for my ground source as well. So if you notice there's another wire. That wire right there, it's pretty much on this frame here, which grounds the whole scooter pretty much, all the entire frame. So I smashed it with the plastic seat cover. But when you do ground, make sure you file off the paint and get to the sheer metal, because you definitely don't want the ground to interfere with any of the metal spots that you have. Okay, so now we're gonna go and start the process of testing out. You're gonna need a voltmeter also. So this voltmeter comes in hand, a little simple voltmeter. Don't be intimidated, you're just looking for voltage. Continuity is measuring ohms. Okay, so voltmeter right now is just reading sporadically because it's not really onto the connector. So what we're gonna do now is test our battery. First thing we do is see the battery continuity. So we're gonna go and put one in the positive. Okay, and then we're gonna put one here in the negative. And then you can see the battery here. Oh man, the battery is really low. It's like 2.5. That's not enough to really crank the scooter. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to install a generator. Generator doesn't have a battery. A generator is something like this right here. This is a generator. It has two settings. You can charge it at about 2 amps, or 4 amps. This might not have a jump start capability, but I want to show you what it sounds like when a battery doesn't have that much juice. So again, because it needs to transfer over to this relay. So when the scooter starts, here we'll turn it on. Okay, keep in mind this battery is only 2.5 volts. I'm going to plug in some alligator clips, be easier to demonstrate and route the cable there. Okay, we got one alligator clip there. Let's get the alligator clip here on the negative end. All right, let me get all this mush of wires out of the way. That way you can see it. It's kind of a dim weather today. We have a little bit of slight rain and I'm playing around with electricity, right? Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go ahead and hook this up. Sorry, wrong terminal. Hooked up to the positive here. And then we're gonna go and hook this up to the negative. Okay, so you can see here, making sure our lead's good. Oh, see, our lead's broken right here. There we go. Should register at 2.5. Low as it is though, I'm just showing you an example. And I'm showing you an example how it actually should read the same. So we're gonna take our negative here, okay, and we're gonna bring it to the terminal, I believe. Oh, actually, you know what? Leave the negative here. We're gonna bring it to the positive terminal of the solenoid. You're gonna see how the battery should actually transfer the battery from here and onto here. This should actually be the same voltage. So let's go and look at that. Bring this a little closer to you. That way you can see it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in. Nope, sorry, the other one right here. So this one's coming from, sometimes it depends because this actually can spin around. Some people wire it this way, some people wire it that way. What you can do is you can follow the harness here. The harness, the positive one will always be on this right hand side. So the harness, unfortunately, is this way and not inside. So that means the positive terminal from the battery is coming from here. So you can see the voltage is still 2.5 volts. Okay, and then over here should be nothing unless when you crank it over. So you can see here 0 millivolts is pretty much nothing. So right here, this is one that's going to the starter motor. The starter motor needs at least 12 volts to crank it. When you crank it over, it'll lose a couple of voltage, but you still need a lot more juice. So watch how I turn it on. It probably won't even turn on the lights because it's so powerless, see? It won't even turn on the lights. Nothing coming on the lights. So watch when I hook up a generator to it. We're gonna go and hook up a generator to it and then we're gonna measure the voltage again. So let me go and put this one back. Here, we're gonna go ahead and hook up a generator to it. Sorry, I keep on trying to get to the other one. Okay, so we're gonna hook up this generator. We're gonna plug it in. And it's optional also. You can actually use some dielectric grease on the battery terminal to make sure no moisture and stuff like that ruins your terminal or make it rust. So dielectric grease is good for conductivity on the battery terminal and even the spark plug ends. And similarly lube, if you're gonna go ahead and install a new starter, which we'll talk about. We're gonna get started on talking about the different varieties of starter. We got the stock one in there right now, but these are the high torque one. We get the Benjing and we got the Shinyi, which is one of the strongest starter you can think of. It's almost twice the weight as the Benjing, which I'll cover with that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get the generator on there. We'll plug it in. There we go. Go and plug this in real quick. All right. You hear it humming there. Okay, so now with the settings, we want to make sure we're on 12 volt 6 amps, the highest it can go. Okay, so we're on 12 volt 6 amps. All right, make sure these leads don't touch or else they'll create a spark. Here we go. We're gonna go and put this on the negative, and then we're gonna put this on the positive. And you can see how it jumps now. There's our volt reader. So it's still very low. It's not even enough to really juice it up, but it's trying. You can see it fluctuating. And hold it a little closer here. There it goes. It's climbing. It was 2 point something, now it's 4.8. It's going to be probably not enough still to really turn it on, but let's see. Our kill switch is actually on, so we'll leave it on off. And our ignition, we'll turn it on straight parallel. You can see there, it's not even enough juice to really turn on the lights. At least the running tail light should be on. But we'll give it a shot. Ready? We're going to try crank the scooter with a little bit of juice. Oh, actually, that's almost measuring millivolts. Let's see if I got everything correct. Yeah, it's barely enough juice. So this battery is like a dud. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, since we can't even, I was gonna show you how it sounds like the relay would try to pull and go very like a struggling noise. So, whoa, so this won't do it. So we're gonna go ahead and turn it off. We'll just unplug it first. All right. So take the leads out. Now we're gonna go ahead and hook up. Now this thing right here has a backup battery in there, so it's a jump starter. And we're gonna go ahead and put it in play. Let me go and put it in here. Don't ruin my nice plastic here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put that in here. And we're gonna try to go ahead and jump start this one here. Yeah. Okay. No. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put this in here. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the positive in here. Now we're gonna crank this up and you can see how much of a difference it is. So I think we got that in there here. Okay, so we got this cranked over. We're gonna turn it on and we're gonna measure the voltage from the power juice here. So here we go. We're gonna turn it on. There it goes. We got instant 12 volts. That might be enough to turn on our lights and everything, which I am correct. So you can see here the lights are on. By the way, we fixed our GY light. Now it's actually our running light too. It turns on by itself. You can see here is nice. This is the running light. This is the back running light as well. And I'm gonna show you when I hit the signal. Here we go. I shouldn't be playing around with the lights yet before I crank this over and let the stator start charging the battery, but you can see how nice it is. And then you can also see the front side lights here. By the way, we found out that our low beam running light is broken, so we ordered some LED on that one, so that should be coming in. It has 3 wires to it. That means it's going to be a 2-phase. So it does a low beam for regular driving, then a high beam. And 2 wires like these, sometimes they're pulse. They can use as a pulse or a 3rd phase, meaning they'll be able to do other things with the bulb, like flickering it or changing it. So that's why this high beam here, if you can see the wire harness, when I open it right here, you can see that it's actually 2 wires go into it, but there is actually 3. There's a ground one too. See that right there? So that's a 3-phase wire there. Okay, so that's going to cause our high beam and low beam. So now that we got a little bit of juice here, we're going to try to crank the scooter over, and we're going to see what's going to happen. Okay, and you're going to hear the solenoid click over. Again, remember, it's a magnet plate that rises up and connects these 2 together. So I'm gonna go ahead and join these 2 together right here. And then I'm gonna hold down the brake lever and you can see everything here. Here we go. You can see how it sounds. See that? Now, it's not enough juice again to crank over the other solenoid. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how much juice is involved. So we're gonna take a positive lead here. Now be careful again, you don't wanna put the positive here because you're gonna be measuring, okay? So here's the first one. See, it measures exactly the same as the battery. This is directly lined from the battery. And this is the solenoid right here. When the engine's not cranked over or is switched over, you can see it's 0. But the minute I switch it over, I still have my on switch on. I'm gonna hold my brake lever. You can see how it spikes up. Now it should spike up about 10 or so forth. You can see that? And it goes back down to 6. It's just not enough juice to really crank the engine over. One thing is, the fact is, this is a very high compression big bore kit. And it also needs probably a high torque starter motor, which we'll talk about later. But the thing about it is the battery is definitely dead on arrival. So now what we're going to do is we're going to even do better. We're going to put another bigger battery set to it. I'm going to turn this off. And we're going to go ahead and put this aside here. Now, by the way, this will still give crank juice. I mean, let's go and leave it on. I'm going to show you the starter because it has some juice. So let me go ahead and put this back on here. And I'm going to show you, we're going to take off the spark plug. And let's go and turn our kill switch off and turn our ignition off to kind of conserve a little bit of the juice. And also this thing has a relative way you can actually charge it. So you can charge the back of the battery. So we'll charge it right now while we're taking off our starter. So be a little bit smarter this way. Okay, so we're going to charge this component here. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to take out the spark plug. You can see pretty much you're going to need a 5/8 socket to take off the spark plug. And the spark plug again is, we're going to move the boot. I want to show you this. There does have spark. The thing that you need to make the scooter work is you need gas. you need compression, and then you need also spark. And other things too, like motor oil and everything else to lubricate it, so for longevity. But to create the scooter for having that combustion, you're gonna need spark, fuel, and you're gonna need compression. Here we go. So the spark plug is out. I mean, the boot is out. There's a spark plug there, which we're gonna go ahead and take out. All right, so let's see if I can angle the camera here. Maybe get in there, you can see it better while I'm doing this. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is going to take out the spark plug, again using a 5/16. Okay, give me 1 second here. This tripod is great because you can actually bend it, so it's kind of nice. Here we go. Here we go, you can hopefully see the spark plug. Okay, you can see the spark plug there. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off with a 5/16. I mean, not 5/16, sorry, 5/6. Here we go, this is it. We're going to take it off with this. 5/8. Okay, so there's a 5/8. Okay, we're going to go in there. With spark. And when you tighten it, it's just a little bit above hand tighten, okay? Don't over tighten your spark plug because it's going into an aluminum head and you don't want to damage the aluminum head. So once you feel it, there you go, see? That's it. And the rest, you can just use your hand to do it. So let me take this back out. Then we're gonna just twirl it with my hand. Actually, my hand's a little bit shorter, so I'll need the socket at least. Put the socket in there. Okay, I'm gonna twirl it. And this has a little rubber on that thing to hold the spark plug in, so it don't just slip off, which is kind of nice. Almost. Might be several turns just to make sure. Oh, not yet. Okay, I think the spark plug is ready to come out. There we go. Spark plug is out. And then you can put some dielectric grease right here on the tip too. Just all over it. And it'll, when you put it in there, when you slide this in there, it'll put dielectric grease inside this, which helps. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just put this in here, that way you can see the spark. Again, this is because your scooter's not starting and it's troubleshooting. Okay, if you know the brand I use right there, CR7HX, is an Iranian brand, one of the best. A little expensive, but it lasts a little bit longer than your standard one. Okay, I want to hear it snap. All right, so you want to put this somewhere where it's near ground. Again, our scooter, it's ground everywhere. Anything that's metal anyway, even on the frame. So let me show you how you can test to make sure everything is ground. You remember our charge, right? For the battery. Okay, so our charge for the battery, it reads, where's the voltmeter again? Oh, voltmeter, where are you, voltmeter? Oh, there it is, hanging out here. Okay, so you remember our charge for the battery? Let's see. Oh, it's not turned on, that's why. Okay, our charge for the battery. It should read if everything's clipped properly. Oh, it's not. Okay, so let's go and clip it. So you clip one in here to the battery. And I'm going to show you the battery reading again. Well, actually, this is the battery backup here. So you can see it's 12 point, oh, you can't see it yet, 12.59, okay? So I got both of the negative and the positive terminal hooked onto the voltmeter. Okay, now I want to show you how, if it's properly ground, everywhere you touch should be the same reading. So let's bring this voltmeter with us. Okay, here we go. So it's millivolt, again, that means nothing. Okay, I'm touching anywhere that's ground. So I'm gonna touch this bolt here. See, 12.6 volts. I'm gonna touch this frame here. If it's, well, this frame has a, what do you call that? It has a paint, that's why it's harder. So 12.6 volts here again. So everywhere is ground. So the benzene might be isolated, but let me see if I can get the straps here. Okay, see, even the straps is 12.62. So everywhere, if you did a good ground, you should have 12.6 volts everywhere you put, even the valve cover. On the engine, especially because it's so near, we definitely put a ground directly from the battery right there to the one bolt of the valve cover. So that definitely has to have it. And then if you put in a carburetor, you should be get to 12.6 volts. So I'm barely tapping into the carburetor. You can see. Not a good contact, but let's see. Okay, it's going a little bit lower, but it's still the same because only the battery's dropping on its own. Even to the shocks right here, it's grounded because it's attached to the frame somehow. See there? 12.65. Oh, well, you're not seeing me put it in right there. Just tapping the one of the bolts. Is that 12.65? So that means you have a good ground. So the ground is good on the battery and everything. So now it's time to test for spark. A lot of people put this on the valve cover and see a spark. I just put it wherever there's ground. That's convenient. So I'm going to put it here for you. That way you can see it spark when I start the scooter. Okay, so again, the scooter, we're going to look for spark even with this low battery, okay? So we'll turn on our kill switch. Kill switch is for safety. It automatically kills the engine just in case for whatever reason it goes crazy on you and you can't stop the bike. Especially if your brakes don't work, then you can at least hit the kill switch. It ain't gonna stop the scooter on free flow, but it'll still. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold a lever. I'm gonna go and crank the scooter over and you're gonna see if there's spark. Okay, the scooter is pretty much, oh, I still have my kill switch off, sorry. Switch it back on. Oh, it is on. Might be so low the battery's not even putting out anymore. All right, so yeah, it's pretty low. Looks like it's almost near dead right there. All right, so if the light's not coming on, that means the battery, oh, ignition, will ya? There we go. We turned it off, ignition. All right, we have this blinker. So here it goes. We're gonna hold the brake lever. The switch is on now, and you can see there's spark, okay? If there's spark, that means the CDI most likely is good. There you go. You see that spark? See that spark? Let's see if I can get a better resolution. See that? And then also there's an air compression coming out here. Another thing is also you want to test if there's mist of gas coming out. That means you have fuel coming into your cylinder, which ignites a spark plug, which is correct. A lot of people just put their finger right here. Just be careful if you have a small finger, it goes into the slot where the spark plug hole is. You could get hurt. I recommend just getting a tissue and just putting it in there and seeing for yourself if it's there's moisture coming in. So let me go and get a tissue real quick here, and we'll go from there. We'll see. We're looking at transmission issue. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna look for any kind of gas coming out of the spark plug hole. Okay, so we're gonna fold up our little towel here. Don't confuse for any outside dirt as your moisture. And we're just gonna fit it inside that little hole there. We don't want to go all the way in because you don't want to have it get caught in the piston. Okay, so there we go. I think that's not all the way in, but you don't want to make sure. Okay, you can bundle it like this if you want. So instead of putting your finger in there, put it in there like that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start the scooter again, and we're going to see if there's gas. We know that there's spark. Okay, but we want to see if there's moisture. You can see how the towel is moving because the air is actually pumping it. Okay, we'll bring it out. There's not so much moisture, but there is some. So you can't really tell too much. It's not going to be a clog of moisture. But yeah, so gas should be actually coming in there. So we do have spark even at that low level. So you can see here, this won't be enough power to jump start, unfortunately, because if we were to test the reading on it, getting our meter again, the jump start is registering. Get the negative here. Negative battery terminal. We'll put that back. Okay, we're going to take our positive here. Okay, so this is our positive. You see here is registering at 12.12 volts. And over here is nothing because we haven't cranked the scooter over yet. So let's see if we crank it over, what it would be. Let's see if I can place this here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try to crank the scooter over again. And it's right there jumping in. This is actually the power going to the starter motor, electric starter. So we're going to hold our lever there. Going to crank it. You can see how the volt spikes. See that? It's not enough. We need a little bit more juice in there. And maybe the fact is also it's such a high compression built. This is a 180cc with a 2.5 millimeter stroker. So it's going to have a lot of high compression, and a regular standard stock starter motor might not actually do the trick. So I'm going to show you how to remove this, and we're going to go and try it with the Banjing one, again with the low power. But before we even try with the Banjing one, let's go and give this stock starter another try. You know, it's $25 versus the Banjing, which is $100. And then we also have a Tata starter, which is a little bit cheaper, $75. And then we have the Tata branded with the Shinyin, which is about $125. So before we give up on this regular starter motor, we're going to go ahead and try to boost it with this one. Now, if you notice here again, this doesn't tell you the amperage that it'll jump start it with, but more than likely it would jump start it than the generator. But we're going to connect another generator to it, and the generator actually has a jump start feature. So we're going to go and put 40 amps on this, and we'll see how that one works. So we'll leave this one aside. Okay, so we're going to go unveil this one right here. This is 40 amps. Don't want to do 200 amps, it'll burn your wires, because these wires are not made for high amperage. Again, keep in mind, amperage is measuring the current flow, and the pressure is actually what's voltage. So it's still a 12 volt, but it has a little bit more robust settings here. You can look at it right here. So what we're going to try to do is you can switch it on to helping the engine jump start, or having it, I believe this might be a charging perhaps, but either way we want to make sure we keep it to 40 amps. Not sure you push it here or where, but we'll see. So I guess over here is a 40 amp, and they also have a 2 amp, 40 amp and a 2 amp. Okay, so let's try this out before we give up on the stock charger. Okay, so we're gonna go and plug this in. Has his cables right there, and has his wire right here. So here we go. Let me go and plug this in. All right, we're gonna plug it in. All right, it's plugged in there. All right, 6 to 2 amps. I guess we can use our selector here. Again, first time using it, so I'm not sure. So we're gonna go ahead and pretty much let's bring the wires out of this clamp setting area. And I guess we need to squeeze a little bit further. Oh, this thing actually pulls like a luggage. Excellent. Okay, and this is for your negative. All right, be careful not to cross it over. Okay, let's see what this one can do. Again, we're using our lead acid battery, which is about almost 5 years old, so it's due. Most time your battery, as well as your starter, as well as most things, usually give up in about 5 years. So we're gonna go and put the negative here. I'm not seeing a spark yet, but we'll see. We'll measure it. Okay, and then we're gonna get our voltmeter. And we're gonna make sure it's plugged into the negative. Okay, we got our positive. Okay, well, we can measure the positive here again. Remember, again, this is the same line going to your positive there. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we can measure a negative. I think this is metal, so it can be a ground. Will it conduct? No, it won't. So we need to go ahead and make sure we tap the ground here. There we go, I got a little piece back there, but not enough. Okay, so the voltage is measuring 1.572 volts right now, and we have it on. Okay, let's see what this bad boy can do. It's still actually lesser than the jump start one, if all connections are correct. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and measure. This one should be nothing because we haven't cranked the scooter over. Okay, so we're gonna try to crank the scooter over now with the 40 amp. I believe the 40 amp is on. A lot of people say, you know, sometimes the battery just doesn't have enough juice to crank over the switch here that leads to the starter motor. So it might not necessarily just be the starter motor. It just be, again, it comes down to a bad battery. And again, we want to, you don't want to crank your lithium battery, especially Shirai, too many times below. It might have a problem charging. So you want to make sure, if you're going to do some testing, make sure you get an older battery and try to work with that one instead. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so here we go. See if there's a setting here. 40 amp. So we can switch this right here. 200 amp. Well, that goes to 200 amp right away. So we're gonna go 40 amp. We're gonna go on. I'm not sure how this works, but I'm pushing it. This one doesn't feel like it's pushing anything. This one doesn't feel like it's pushing anything. You know, it's more like a scratcher. But this one is where its settings is, see? So it's setting to 200 amp. We're doing this one right here. All right, so if I switch it here, it goes directly to 200 amp. We don't want that. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and stick with this switch right here. All right, so right now, of course it's not reading anything, but we're gonna try to crank the scooter over. We have it on. We're gonna turn our ignition. Oh, ignition is on. Wow, this thing is actually even dead as a doorknob. So this not even, this was even weaker than the jump starter we had. It wouldn't even bring the voltage up. Okay, but in the meantime, what I could do is show you guys troubleshooting basics. So again, you will test out the battery here, make sure it transfers 12 volts, the same as here, 12 plus volts you're gonna need to crank the scooter over. And then when it starts, it would drop down maybe a volt or two, but it should be about maybe anywhere from 11 to 10 volts still remaining here for momentarily when you hit that switch button. So also we wanna check for spark. And another thing we wanna do is switch to our high torque starter motor. So we're gonna do that in a little bit. But unfortunately, this thing, I'm not sure why it's not cranking over, but it's probably not made, it's dead or something like that. So what we're gonna do is try to crank it over again. We're gonna switch it. Here we go. Yeah, it's not really giving us any voltage. Even if we switch it here, it's very low. 1.57. I'm surprised it's so low. I mean, it's supposed to produce at least 12 volts. Quick start, rate selection. Okay, ground. Okay, engine start mode. Set on and off, switch to engine start. Let's try to do engine start mode and see what happens. I really don't like the 200 there. 200 is such a high amperage. But let's see how it's boosting it. Okay, it's not boosting much. Only maybe because I'm actually measuring. Let's see here. Let me measure this. Let me measure this itself. See, it's still in the millivolts. Okay, I'm gonna measure the teeth of these things and see where it's at. Okay, so we got those clamped to the teeth, and it's still very poor. It's like 36 millivolts. So either we're not using this properly. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this again. Switch it over. Okay, when we switch it over, what do we have? Okay, we want to switch it over to 40 amps. Not sure why. It could be the bad wiring too, by the way. This wiring harness might be a really bad one. The cable that's coming to this one. So it could be a lot of variations. So what we're gonna do is, see if I can switch it off right now. We're gonna change out this battery here. I mean, change out this wiring. This wiring just might be a really bad wiring, not supporting it all the way. So we're gonna look for a heavier duty wire.